Hey guys, it's Dave here from Pixelblips. We're not going to be able to do a normal show this week, so I'm going to do a solo show real quick. We'll try to cover the same kind of stuff, so I'll start with what I've been playing. So this week I have been playing God of War Ascension. I actually finished it pre-patch, so go me. It was a giant pain in the ass, but I got through the Trial of Achilles and completed the rest of the game. Overall, it's not my favorite God of War. I think 3 is still probably the best of, in my opinion, God of Wars. But it was a mostly serviceable game. There was a couple of times when it was like, it doesn't seem like that's up to standard of the rest of the God of War games. But so there's that. I also played a little bit more SimCity, and I picked up Mass Effect because of what SimCity, or Mass Effect 3, because of the SimCity launch. They gave everybody a chance to get a free game. So out of the list, I chose Mass Effect 3, and I'll tell you what the rest are here in a minute. But first, I want to talk about God of War. So God of War did as I said, the Trial of Achilles has a section in the game called the Trial of Achilles. It's it's basically a endurance trial, right? Like, you are in an enclosed space, you can't escape the area, you can't go anywhere until you've completed this trial. Well, when I played the game, which was, not pre-release or anything, I played the game after the release, the 2 weeks before this patch that came out, either last night or today. It was fine. Like, the difficulty curve was there. Like, yeah, it starts out real easy. You're only given like 1 or 2 guys at a time, and then they start throwing at you, the bigger dudes, and then they start throwing little guys with the bigger dudes, and so on and so forth. But I think just the way that the Trial of Achilles was set up seemed like it was too much at once. And by that I mean, like, you were given 3 large enemies, or 2 large enemies, to fight at the same time. And once you kill those 2 enemies, you then get 2 more of the same enemies, and then 3 smaller enemies that are difficult. And that is difficult to deal with in conjunction with the 2 larger enemies. I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't got that far. Which, getting through that was the biggest hump for me. Like, the first phase of that was the most difficult, because it was, when you're playing it, you only have, at least prior to this new patch, you only have 1 life bar, and you have absolutely no way of getting any life back in the first phase. And you're given like the circular platform, but you're only given like half of it to do anything on because of the way that it is set up. And I felt like it was too difficult for the pacing of the rest of the game. Like, the God of War had its difficulty curve, right? Like, it ramped up, but when you hit this point, it went from a nice gradual ramp to, hey, now you got to scale this mountain. You got to go from walking up this little Missouri hill to now you got to go climb K2. And that's just how it felt when you get to it. And if you were lucky enough to survive the first phase, then you had to go through 2 more phases. Now, the second phase is a lot smaller area. It's a lot tighter corridor that you have to work in. So you can basically sit in one end and block all the attacks from the first part of that phase. And the monsters that are there, when you do their quick time instant kills, whatever you want to call them, they will give you a small amount of life back. And there was no shortage of magic, so if you could just spam magic to get through the first phase, that's great. It just seemed like the way that was set up seemed like it was too difficult. It was unfairly difficult, given that the rest of the game seemed to be on a standardized pace. Like, it felt good. It felt like the right difficulty on normal. I played it on normal. I don't know what everybody else is playing it on. But it just felt like they lost their pacing at that point. But now, with this patch that's come out, after each round, so after you get through the first section, supposedly you'll get a little bit of life and an even smaller amount of magic back. Which sounds like that would have made my frustrations lessened. because that was my biggest problem. Was I would get through the first 2 sections, and at some point I would just die, and I had no idea how long I had to go, and then you have to start over and you have to do the whole thing over again. It's not like it checkpoints after you get the first stage and checkpoints after you get through the second stage of it. But if it checkpointed, then it would be way too easy because you die, but then you'd come back with full life, so on and so forth. So I'm glad that they're patching it to make it more manageable. I wish they had maybe playtested a little bit more and seen if there was a way to, lessen the difficulty, be it either, hey, let's throw a monster in there that is just fodder. Like, here's a couple of harpies, go ahead and do what you do to them to get life bubbles back. Or, any monster that was guaranteed to give you life bubbles back at the end of each phase, that would have been fine. Something like that. But without that, I think it was not too difficult. It was just overly difficult for the pacing of the rest of the game. Because after that point, I had no problems. Before that point, I had no problems. I spent over 3 days, I think I spent like 3 hours playing just that 15, 20-minute section over and over again. And it's excessively frustrating for someone to play a section that they know they can beat, and it just feels unfairly tuned. But I am glad they're fixing it, and I'm glad more people will be able to finish this game now, because I know a lot of people who are stuck at that point. They're just frustrated. They're like, I hate this game. I hate this game. I'm like, they're gonna fix it. They're gonna patch it. They've already said that they're looking into it. That has now happened, so that's good. And also, or not also. So going along the lines of things in gaming that make us sad. So if you've been playing SimCity, or if you played SimCity since launch, you knew that they had all kinds of problems. They had all kinds of issues with server queues and things like that. So as part of their "I'm sorry that SimCity's launch sucked so bad" letter to all the people on Origin, EA is going to give away a handful of games for free. So basically, you'll get an email in whatever your Origin account is linked to, and it'll say, hey, you can choose one of these games to add to your Origin account. So you can get Battlefield 3, the standard edition, so you don't get any of the premium edition stuff. You can get Dead Space 3, which I found kind of interesting that they're actually giving you that since it came out such a short time ago. Mass Effect 3, so the big game that everybody loved from last year, is you get it for free on the PC. You also get Medal of Honor Warfighter. I don't know a lot about Medal of Honor. I'm not a big Medal of Honor fan, so that kind of just went over my head. You get Need for Speed Most Wanted. There was a lot of cool stuff I'd heard about it, but it had some issues just mechanically, I think. Plants vs. Zombies, which is a really fun game. I have it on my Steam account, but I also have it on my Vita. It's a lot more fun on the Vita. You get SimCity 4 Deluxe Edition, which I found kind of hilarious. That they're like, hey, we're sorry SimCity blew up. Here's an older SimCity that has everything that you're asking for. The offline mode, the larger areas. It does have the regional play where you can build separate cities and then have them all work together, much like the way SimCity works now, or the newer SimCity works. I just think that, I think them giving you an older SimCity and saying this is a better SimCity game is really going to hurt the sales of SimCity. Now, the only way you can get this offer is if you have bought a copy of SimCity and you register it on an Origin account before March 25th, because I think that's like their deadline, their cutoff. So you have a couple of more days. It's the 23rd right now when I'm recording this. So you have until Monday or Tuesday to get it done. And then after you register the SimCity, your SimCity code, you then have, I think, until the end of March, maybe April 1st, in order to pick your game. Now, I chose Battlefield 3. Terrible Battlefield. I chose Mass Effect 3, and I haven't played it yet, mostly because I have Mass Effect 1 and I haven't played that either. I hear 2 is probably the best in the series, but if I can get Mass Effect 3 for free, I'll probably play Mass Effect 3. But any one of those games. Oh, I also forgot Bejeweled 3. If you really want a match 3 game on your PC, and like the Facebook versions and the free ones on the Vita, or I'm sure there's one on the DS. whatever. It's Bejeweled. I'm not too worried about Bejeweled. But yeah, I, you know, I think it's a good thing that EA and Maxis are going, hey, we know we screwed up with the launch of SimCity, and to make it up to you, you know, here's a free game. You get to choose one of these 7 or 8. So that's cool. I'm glad that they're admitting that there was some fault on their part, and they're still trying to fix the SimCity issues. Every time I've tried to get on ever since, there hasn't been any issues. By the way, if you want, you can add me to Origin. I believe my login is just Dave Dewert, so just DAVEDEWEERT. I'll put a little link or something in the comments. Because I have very few Origin friends, and I do have a couple of areas set up, so if you guys want to play with me in SimCity, or in any of these other Origin games, I'll definitely try to play with you if I get a chance. So that's really all I got this week. Next week, I know me and Andy are going to talk about some of the stuff that was announced at PAX. Probably very specifically, but not limited to the DuckTales HD remake, because that's exciting. And the Chronicles of Mystara remake. I think they're both being put out by Capcom. So yeah, we're probably going to talk about that next week. Hopefully, if Snowmageddon doesn't kill us. So yeah. Don't forget to spay and neuter your Pokemon, and we will see you next week.